Okay, I'm recording now for chapter 4. We have energy of life. One of the things that we got to think about when we're doing about energy of life is some basic concepts, and 4-1 talks about those basic concepts. You know that life needs all energy, and life needs energy, all right? That shouldn't be a surprise. That's true. Number 2 asks, is this chemical reaction photosynthesis? By now, everyone should know, as much work as we've done on this, that C6H12O6 is on the reactant side, so that cannot be photosynthesis, right? Because photosynthesis is making sugar, it's not taking it apart, and it produces oxygen, it doesn't take in oxygen, and it also takes apart water, it doesn't make water. So all that is opposite, and that's why it's not photosynthesis. Glucose is a carbohydrate that stores chemical energy in a concentrated, stable form. Is a carbohydrate that stores chemical energy in a concentrated, stable form. That's absolutely true. That shouldn't be a problem with anybody. And remember, we talked about ATP being the currency of the cell. Glucose is a short-term storage. And of course, then you have glycogen, cellulose, starch as longer-term uses of glucose. Many scientists consider photosynthesis to be the most important life process on Earth. That's obviously true. Only autotrophs can perform photosynthesis. That's true. Somebody asked a minute ago, what's an autotroph? What's a heterotroph? Autotrophs just means they make their own food. All right? Heterotrophs mean they eat things, other things to get the energy. All right? Get the food. All right, so let's make that straight and make sure we understand that. Only autotrophs can perform photosynthesis. That's absolutely true. There's no heterotroph that does photosynthesis. Only 4 types of organisms, plant, algae, fungi, and some bacteria can make food through photosynthesis. That's false because of fungi. All right, ATP is the energy, the currency of the cell, so it makes sense that the molecule ATP contains much more chemical energy than the molecule of glucose. The problem with that is the problem that always happens in this problem set like this one, and that's that what they do is they give you part of the answer as being true. So the fact that ATP is the energy currency of the cell is true. People get tricked and they put true on the whole thing, and that's just not the case. That's true, but the second half of the answer is false, and that's that ATP glucose has much more energy than ATP. Whereas photosynthesis occurs only in some organisms, cellular respiration occurs in the cells of all living things. That's true. The only problem I have is the word all. There are some organisms that do chemosynthesis. I think that they still do respiration. And of course, we have fermentation to deal with as well. So, I just don't like the word all. I think it depends on how you look at that problem. Like matter, energy is also recycled by living things. Energy can't be recycled because the problem is that with matter, when you change a molecule, you change one atom to another. You don't have to lose the atom. But with energy, as soon as you change it, you automatically lose some energy always. So we don't know of anything that's 100% efficient. So you can't really recycle energy. You can conserve it. You can be very efficient. You can be more efficient with it, but you can't recycle it. Heterotrophs cannot make their own food. Well, that's true. That's the definition of heterotrophs. Because you're able to cook your own food in the microwave, then you're a producer. No, that's not true. When they say make your own food, that means that you take something and you actually make the sugar, or you make it from inorganic materials. If you're eating something, then you're a heterotroph. Because you're able to cook, the mushrooms are fungi, they are heterotrophs, that's true. The fact that mushrooms or fungi are heterotrophs. That's why number 6 was wrong. All right? A food chain shows how energy and matter flow from consumers to producers. That's absolutely true. Photosynthetic animals are autotrophs. Yes, that's true. Autotrophs are producers. Yes, that's true. All right, so does everybody understand that so far? Okay. So now to the next part here, where it gives you all this information about autotrophs and heterotrophs. Then it asks you three questions. It says, what is energy? Give an example how energy is used in a living organism. Well, energy is the stuff of movement. It's the stuff that allows you to do work. Without energy, you can't move. Right? So that could take the form of electricity. It could take the form of mechanical energy. It could take the form of light. Okay? But energy is the stuff that allows some structure to actually move. So when we're looking at how do we use that in living systems, you can talk about walking or talking or thinking, right? You can talk about how ATP is used to open and close gated channels in the membrane. How you can talk about how proteins are able to move from A to B. How you change, how enzymes can use ATP to break a molecule up or build the molecule up. So there's all kinds of things you can discuss to answer that. There's all kinds of examples when it comes to that. All right, so the next question is distinguish between autotrophs and heterotrophs. Again, I think we just said the answer. It's real simple. Autotrophs make their own food. They build their own food. Heterotrophs eat everything else. They get their energy through eating something. Determine if the following autotrophs are autotrophs or heterotrophs. A giant redwood tree. Autotroph, right. A tree, any plant is an autotroph. That's the definition of a plant. It's just making its own food through photosynthesis. A spider. Heterotroph. A rose bush. Autotroph. A mushroom. A mushroom is a heterotroph. We said in the multiple choice. A blue whale. Heterotroph. So again, easy. Shouldn't be too much trouble. How is energy used in a cell? We talked about it about a million different ways, right? You can choose any one of those. Why are autotrophs considered the basis of the food chains? Because everything else gets their energy from plants. Yes, a lion could eat the zebra, but the zebra got its energy from grass. So really everything starts with a plant. All right, so let's move on to photosynthesis. Photosynthesis uses photosynthesis, A, uses the energy in sunlight to make food? Yeah. I would say that's true. Uses glucose in sunlight to make food? Is there glucose in sunlight?
No.
No, that was a silly question. Uses the energy in sunlight to make ATP?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's better. That's more right than A. See, that's the problem with multiple choice questions. You could say uses the energy in sunlight to make food. Well, in general, that's true, right? That's the whole idea of photosynthesis. You agree with me? Right? You're taking sunlight, you're converting to glucose. But remember that photosynthesis is separated into two parts, isn't it? The light reactions and the Calvin cycle. And if that was the only right answer, A could be true. But C is a better answer, isn't it? You're using energy in the sunlight to make ATP in the light reactions. Then you take the ATP and do what? Throw it into what? The Calvin cycle. And then the Calvin cycle, that's where you create the sugar, make the food. And of course, breaks down glucose is wrong. So the best answer is letter C. The best answer is actually letter C. Which of the following autotrophs is also a producer? Maple tree, blue-green algae, blue-green bacteria known as cyanobacteria, Laurencia marine genus red algae from Hawaii. All the above are producers. Okay, I'm going to pause this for a second. So I say maple tree, we all agree that's a producer, right? Blue-green algae, blue-green bacteria known as cyanobacteria. That's one of the bacterias that do photosynthesis. So the answer there is true. If you looked it up on Google, you'd know that cyanobacteria do photosynthesis. Marine genus red algae in Hawaii. What do algae do? They do photosynthesis, don't they? They're one of the other organisms that do photosynthesis. So remember when we're number 3 in that says in the food chain grass, grasshopper, snake, hawk. Which organism is a heterotroph? Grass, grasshopper, snake, hawk. They say the grass and the grasshopper, the hawk, the grasshopper, snake, and hawk. Which are heterotrophs? What's the best answer? D, grasshopper, snake, and hawk. See, there's another example of a question that 3 of those questions could be right depending on your situation. Which of the following statements is true about glucose and ATP? Glucose is made during photosynthesis. Energy, that's true, right? The energy in sunlight is temporarily stored in glucose before it's transferred to ATP. Wait, think about this. Glucose and energy in sunlight is temporarily stored in ATP in glucose before it's transferred. I guess that's true. Yep. ATP is energy carrying molecule that cells use for energy. True as well. And the processes that make ATP and glucose also recycle oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere. That's true as well. So all 4 statements are correct. We all agree with that? Yeah. Okay. Photosynthesis can be described in the process that what?
Uses carbon dioxide and
So we say A. Everybody agree it's A? All right. Number 6, which statement best describes the relationship between a consumer and a producer? B is correct. All the rest of them are dealing with the other 2 of the rest are dealing with 2 heterotrophs, and D is just the producer by itself, right? So 7, which of the following statements are true? Products of photosynthesis are the reactants of cellular respiration. That's true, right? Products of cellular respiration are the reactants in photosynthesis. That's true, because they're opposite of one another, right? That's how you're recycling the matter. That's why the photosynthesis and respiration, that's why a cactus can live without water, because it just recycles all the atoms around and around. The only thing it needs is energy, and it gets that from light. It needs to replace some water because it's always losing a little bit of water, but it doesn't need as much as some other plants. Number 8, the correct chemical formula for photosynthesis is what? So it's one. Could it be C6H12O6 in the beginning? If it's photosynthesis, no. So C and D are wrong. So it's either A or B. Which is correct? B. Because it doesn't need oxygen, it produces oxygen, it needs water, because what does water do in photosynthesis? It does produce oxygen and hydrogen because the water is broken down, but what's its real purpose in photosynthesis?
because when the water molecule goes up, when it splits, and then the electrons go in.
Perfect. It's the electrons are the key. It's taking in the electrons. All right, so number 1, in the vocabulary, let's take a look. The process in which glucose is broken down into ATP and ATP is made is called what? Cellular respiration. Organism at the end of the food chain is decomposer would be fine. That would be fine. Yeah, decomposer is a good answer. Depends on where you're stopping the chain, but yeah. Shows how energy and matter flow from producers to consumers. What do we call that? Shows how energy and it's a food chain. It could be a food web as well, right? So it's a food chain or a food web, because a food web just shows you how everything's happening in that particular system. Also known as an autotroph. What is the other? What thing that's also known as an? Say again. A producer. That's right. Okay, so the ability to do work. The ability to do work. What is that called? Energy, guys. Stores chemical energy as in a concentrated, stable form. Glucose, correct. And the energy-carrying molecule that cells use for energy. ATP. So it carries the energy from one process to the other. That's why we call it the energy currency of the cell. Process that stores energy from sunlight in a chemical bonds of glucose. Photosynthesis is correct. Organisms that make their own food. Autotrophs is correct. It could also be producers. All animals and fungi that make single-celled organisms. And many single-celled organisms. That's right, heterotrophs is the answer. Organisms that must eat. Organisms that must eat. They're consumers. And one could argue decomposers as well. It could be decomposers, it can be consumer, it could be heterotrophs, right? All three of those are organisms that must eat. So right there, that answer could have been, there's many right answers for that particular question. Organic molecules that store energy in their chemical bonds. What would you call it? Food is a possibility. What's another possibility there from that list? Glucose is a possibility. What's another possibility there? Energy, not really, because it's saying it's storing the energy. So what in a chemical bond? Certainly it's glucose. Certainly it's food. And what else could it be there? ATP. I didn't hear you. So it's one of those three. You remember, you're all the way in the back. So heterotrophs are living things that cannot make their own food. Blank and blank are the two types of molecules organisms use for chemical energy. Yeah. Glucose and ATP is correct. You could use fat too. You can use amino acids, right? So really, organisms can use glucose, fat, amino acid, or ATP. But you're right, in the context of this chapter, ATP and glucose. Glucose and blank are the products of photosynthesis. Oxygen is correct. And you could also put some hydrogen, and you could also put, oxygen and glucose is fine. Blank, water, and energy are the products of cellular respiration. Carbon dioxide is correct. Photosynthesis is the process in which energy from blank is transferred to glucose. ATP. That's right. ATP is in the glucose. And where did ATP get its energy? The sun. So the sun is a proper answer. ATP could be an answer. What else? ATP, photon, right? ATP, or what else? Something else is going to the Calvin cycle, not just ATP. NADPH. NADPH. Let's not forget NADPH. Without photosynthesis, there would be no blank in the atmosphere. Oxygen. There was very little oxygen in the beginning. It was photosynthesis that made it. All organisms burn glucose to form what during cellular respiration? ATP is correct. The chemical formula of glucose is? C6H12O6. That's correct. C6H12O6. Very good. Photosynthesis occurs in the blank. In the chloroplast is all right. It's good. You could also be more specific and say the thylakoid membrane and the what? The stroma. Right? but chloroplast is fine. And cellular respiration occurs in mitochondria. Mitochondria, very good. Blank make their own food, whereas blank get their food from eating other living things. I mean, come on, they keep hitting that, right? So you can expect a lot of questions about that on the test, right? Living organisms get their blank from food. Energy from food. All right. Draw 5 levels of food chain identifying autotrophs, heterotrophs, producers, and consumers. I think you're fine. I think you can do that, right? That's pretty simple. Okay, now we're sugar as food 4-2. Photosynthesis provides almost all the energy used in living things. True. Earth's oxygen comes from photosynthesis. True. I mean, do we see this going over and over again? All right. In photosynthesis, the Calvin cycle comes before the light reactions. No, that's false. ATP and NADPH are reactants of the light are reactants in the light reactions. Reactants. Right. They're not reactants, they're products. So they are products, but the reactants, remember, is what goes in, not what comes out. So electron transport occurs in a thylakoid membrane. True. And what is electron transport? Who can tell me that?
When hydrogen, the electrons travel.
Right, when electrons get moved from place to place along the membrane, right? And we're moving the hydrogen and we're increasing the hydrogen ion concentration. That's electron transport. And you're going to see it again in the mitochondria, so it's important that you understand that. All right, so the next one is, what number are we on? 6. All cells have chloroplasts. False. Only plant cells, plant cells, some bacteria, and algae, right? During the Calvin cycle, NADPH, ATP are used to make glucose. True, absolutely true, absolutely true. CO2, carbon dioxide, NADPH, ATP go in. A 3-carbon sugar come out. You could say false. Let's say false, because what do we come up with really out of the Calvin cycle? I mean, some people might say that's true, but I think it's a little bit lazy to say it's true. What is the actual product of the Calvin cycle? What's the whole reason to do the Calvin cycle? Come on, guys. It's a sugar, but what kind of sugar? Not a 6-carbon sugar.
I know.
A 3-carbon sugar. Remember C3 photosynthesis. It's glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, or G3P. Then you can use that to make what?
To make sugar.
To make the glucose. 2 of those make a glucose. So don't get confused by that. All right. Where were we? Somebody help me out. 8. Photons of sunlight can excite and energize electrons. True. The chemoosmotic gradient causes hydrogen ions to flow across the thylakoid membranes into the stroma. True. And where does that happen? Where are the hydrogen ions flowing from high to low? Where is that happening?
From the light, whatever.
What particular part of this? What particular protein complex? Where's it leaving? The electron transport chain is bringing hydrogen in, creating the chemiosmotic gradient, right? Where the hydrogen is leaving the thylakoid space and going into the stroma? At what point? At what molecule?
After it's done going through.
Where the name of the molecule? That's right, ATP synthase. ATP synthase, because that's the whole purpose of making a concentration gradient, is to get ATP synthase to twirl around and make ATP. It's kind of tricky. 2 turns of the Calvin cycle produce 2 molecules of glucose. False. 2 turns of Calvin cycle make 2 G3Ps and equal 1 glucose if that's what you're doing. All right, Calvin cycle takes place in the stroma surrounding the thylakoid membranes in the chloroplasts. True. During the light reactions, water molecules are made. False. It's the opposite, right? We're taking them apart. Light is absorbed by photosystems in the thylakoid membranes of chloroplasts. True. Both stages of photosynthesis need sunlight to proceed. False. Only the light reactions, hence their name. All right, so then what's interesting about these practice problems, you'll see that they give you photosynthesis stage 1, steps of the light reactions, right? So there you got some steps. So if you're doing these problems, you're reviewing for the test at the same time. So as we go down to look at the questions, with all that information, you see that in one sentence, describe what happens during the light reaction. Somebody do that real quick. Anybody have an idea? For me, it'd be a long sentence, but I'll describe it for you. Ready? Light comes into the photosystem, some light, it gets absorbed by the chlorophyll. Some other light is used to break up water and let electrons get brought into the photosystems. Those electrons are excited in the photosystems, and then they're passed from one protein to the other to attract and trap hydrogen ions in the thylakoid space, creating a chemiosmotic gradient, a high hydrogen concentration inside, low outside. That energy is needed because you have to bring in hydrogen ions from the outside where it's low into the high concentration inside. Those electrons then, once they've lost most of their energy, they need to be re-excited in photosystem 1, where once excited, they're passed from protein to protein again, and finally accepted by NADP plus to make NADPH, so that high energy molecule can then go to the Calvin cycle and transfer its energy there. End of story. That's a long sentence, but it explained everything. In the steps of the light reactions is sunlight absorbed? In which step of or steps in the light reaction is sunlight absorbed? What are the two steps?
Photosystem 1,
Very good. I would rather you say photosystem 2 than photosystem 1. But that's good. 2 and 1. Again, you got all those review videos that you can watch if you're confused about any of that, or I can explain to you here if you like once we're done with these answers. Why is water split during the light reaction? Somebody just answer it. You need those electrons. Right.
And it gives off oxygen.
It does. It does give off oxygen, but that plant doesn't need the oxygen, right? It also helps the plant because the plant can use it in respiration. Remember, the plant does do respiration. What is the electron transfer chain, and what is the role during these light reactions?
Wait, what was the question?
What is the electron transport chain? I just said it in that whole long sentence.
It makes it go that certain route.
So it carries the electrons from protein to protein. That's the electron transfer chain. Why does it do that?
To be able to create the...
Because in the cytochrome, what's it trying to do? It's not trying to get rid of it. It's just
trying to make energy to get the hydrogen on the outside.
it's using the energy to take it from hydrogen ions from low to high through the cytochrome. That's very good. Absolutely right. It's just using that energy of the electrons to make it low to high, right? So then now you got a high concentration of hydrogen ions inside, low outside. How is ATP made during the light reactions? So you made the hydrogen ion concentration, but how did you make ATP?
The ATP synthase.
ATP synthase, because now you use that high to low, because things will move high to low naturally, and you use those hydrogen ions to turn the ATP synthase, and that turning of the ATP synthase makes ATP repeatedly. All right, most autotrophs make food through the process of photosynthesis. Some do it through chemosynthesis, though. Remember that, right? All right. 2, the correct sequence of events in the light reactions is, someone tell me the answer. I don't even want to read all that. B, absorption of sunlight, splitting water, electrons flow down the electron transport chain, ATP is made. Well, that's good. Anybody have a problem? Any have a better answer? So let's try A. Absorption of sunlight, electrons flow down the electron chain, ATP is made, NADPH is made. Well, I like that one better, don't you?
That's what I put A.
Don't you make ATP and NADPH rather than just ATP? Wait, what's that? Did it say something wrong? What did it say? Ah, okay, so somebody's saying that splitting the water first makes more sense. I agree. That's important too. So I can see B being the better answer. Electrons flow down the electron transport chain, NADPH is made, ATP is made, and water is split. Well, that one's wrong, right? Absorption of sunlight, electrons flow down the electron transport chain, NADPH is made, and water is split. Again, D is wrong as well, right? So it's either A or B, and I kind of tend to like B better. Do you see why I think B might be better? Because it mentions splitting water, which is important. So let's go with B as the answer. 3, the Calvin cycle occurs where? In the stroma surrounding the thylakoid membranes of the chloroplast. That's correct. All right. So 4, by the end of the light reactions, energy from sunlight has by the end, yes, NADPH ATP is correct. The light reactions. Now, of course, by the end of photosynthesis, they're put into what? Into glucose, or at least into G3P. ATP synthase is what?
It's where it turns the ADP and
Okay, but which one? A, B, C, or D? Which is it?
I don't have paper.
Oh, here, get one over here, man. There's a paper right over there. There's extra copies. ATP synthase is what? Somebody? I'm going to let you answer this. Somebody answer it. Huh? I'm looking at number 5 on page 4-2, page 62. ATP synthase is
Number 9.
number 5.
Oh. ATP synthase is.
No. No.
It's A. Is it A? It's A. It's A.
No, it's C.
Hold on. I ain't even read C. Let me read C. It's C. But I think it's A.
What's the difference between A and C?
That's the
C has one acid.
So is it a carrier protein? Or is it? Well, we all agree that B and D are wrong, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a start. So if you're on a test, you got half of it. You already got 50-50. You brought it down to 50-50 chance. That's pretty good. Now the only question is it a channel protein or is it a carrier protein? That's really the difference.
It's a channel.
Why do you think it's a channel protein? Somebody, what's the
I
difference?
think it's a carrier protein only because
All right,
it doesn't open and close like a channel protein. It opens and closes, brings something in and out. So it just goes right through. Yeah, the channel protein needs to open, bring it in, close it, bring it in. So I'd say
All right, but we all have to agree on this. Is it? Yeah, go ahead, Brianna. What do you think?
I think it's canal protein because it starts here and it goes through it to get through the membrane. It doesn't attach on and let it carry it across. It travels through.
I kind of agree with Brianna. So I like channel protein because it opens up and the protons flow through, right? Yeah.
It says right here, enzyme ATP synthase acts as a channel protein.
Did you hear that? You looked it up where? In the book?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have someone looking it up in the book. I agree with Brianna. It's a channel protein, and the book confirms all of us. So it's a channel protein. So its answer is A, right? We're all good? All right, number 6. It's and really knowing the difference between channel protein, the carrier protein binds to it, then moves it inside. A great example of a carrier protein, a great example is that sodium potassium pump. With that's for active transport. By the way, I think that was chapter 3. Make sure you know it. 2 or 3. Make sure you know that example of active transport. Okay, because it's going to be on the final as well. Your final is going to cover chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. and some anatomy and some chemistry.
What chemistry?
What we covered in class, guys, in the notebooks. It's in your syllabus, your study guide.
Oh,
Essentially, the oxygen we breathe is what?
okay.
Waste product of photosynthesis is correct. Calvin cycle, what?
Uses energy,
B is true. Does the Calvin cycle start with RUBP? Yeah, that's true as well. So in a multiple choice exam, if you have two things that are true, then if the only thing you have is all of the above, even if you don't know what the third one is, you should know it's all the above. But number C turns twice to produce one molecule, glucose. Yes, we said that earlier. So actually all three are definitely true. Remember the product of the Calvin cycle is a 3-carbon sugar, and glucose is how many carbons? 6. I heard someone say 6. So glucose is a 6-carbon sugar. If Calvin cycle makes a 3-carbon sugar, then how many times do you have to do the Calvin cycle to make glucose? Twice.
Oh.
So it's just 6, right? All right. 3 plus 3 is 6. Everybody remember that from elementary school? We're all good? Sorry, I'm trying. I was funny. I wasn't trying to be funny. How do bacteria that live deep below the ocean surface make food? Quick.
Photosynthesis.
Look at it. Not photos. Deep in the ocean, there's no light. Chemosynthesis. That's right. Good. B is right. I heard people yell B. Great. Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What? Good. I'm glad you stopped. So chemosynthesis, you don't understand what that is? Right, we're not going to talk about it. But it's all about bacteria. They're bacteria and some other organisms that do all kinds of fancy chemistry to get energy from the heat down at the bottom of the ocean, from volcanic vents. So the earth produces heat. Well, these little bacteria use that heat to capture some of that heat to make chemical energy. It doesn't have anything to do with photosynthesis. All right, but I'm not sure. I have to look it up to see if they actually make sugar or not. I don't know if they actually make sugar, but I'm not sure. Because they can take, there is CO2 down there, so they could take CO2 and make sugar. Probably that's happening, okay? But the chemistry of it, we're not going to get into it. So we're calling it chemisynthesis, right? So we know photosynthesis is making a biomolecule, making G3P from what? From photo. What is photo? Light. Photon. Photo, right? What's a photograph? A light picture, a picture from light, right? So that's where So photosynthesis, you're making something, a biomolecule from light. With chemosynthesis, you're making a biomolecule from some fancy chemistry. That's where chemo comes from, chemistry. We're not going to get into the details, though. All right, a green pigment. A green pigment, guys, what is it? Chlorophyll, that's right. Main product of photosynthesis?
glucose.
No.
ATP.
G3P. Glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Yes, glucose will ultimately be made after you go thrice. Oxygen is a byproduct.
Yeah, it's not here. Glucose is the only thing here.
Oh, glucose is the only thing there? Okay, then glucose is the answer. But don't forget it's G3P, okay? The process in which chemical energy instead of sunlight is used to make food. Now I want you to answer this. The process where chemical energy instead of sunlight is used to make food. Chemosynthesis. You got it. You learned today. Let's move on. Process is in which sunlight is used to make food. Photosynthesis. I mean, do we all see the repeated questions here? Sac-like membranes that make up grana within the chloroplast. Thylakoids. Organelle of photosynthesis.
What?
Organelle of photosynthesis. The organelle. Chloroplast. Good. Space outside the thylakoid membranes within the chloroplast. Stroma.
Not stoma.
Exactly, not stoma, stroma. Energy carrying molecule. Energy carrying. The currency. ATP. NADPH does as well, yeah. But we really call NADPH electron carriers, but you're right, it's carrying energy. I would accept that too, but I'd be careful. I'm going to tell you right now, if somebody asks you energy carrying and they give you ATP, choose that one. So that's definitely true. If they give you an answer that says ATP and NADPH, choose that one. Okay? But don't get all confused and say it's not ATP. It's certainly ATP. ATP is the number one energy carrier in your body. In all living systems, it is the energy currency of the cell. Don't forget that. Where are we? 9. Series of electron transport molecules which pass electrons from molecule to molecule. Electron transport chain. Good. Groups of molecules where sunlight is absorbed during the light reactions. Groups of molecules or sunlight is always photosystem is correct. Photosystem 2 and photosystem 1, but photosystem is fine. Stage of photosynthesis in which the energy from sunlight is stored in ATP and NADPH. Where energy is stored from light into ATP and NADPH is light reactions, is correct. Stage of photosynthesis is in which glucose is made. Calvin cycle, that's correct. Oh gosh, here's 4.2 vocabulary. Are we ready? Blank are organelles where photosynthesis takes place. All right. Stage 1 of photosynthesis is called light reaction. Stage 2 is called Calvin cycle. During the first stage of photosynthesis, a molecule of blank is released, oxygen. Waking food with chemical energy instead of sunlight is called chemosynthesis. Chloroplasts contain Tell me all the things you know that chloroplasts contain. Thylakoids, grana, stroma, thylakoid space, all the membrane. The thylakoid membrane has all those proteins. Starches would be in there as well, right? Okay, so you know it all, right? Okay, let's get going here. Making food with chemical energy. Oh, we already said that. Most blank make food with using photosynthesis. Oh, I'm sorry. Which are made of sac-like membranes? Chloroplasts contain blank, which are made of sac-like membranes. That sac-like membranes, well, that would be thylakoids or grana, right? And known as, all right, so we know that they're thylakoids and we know they're thylakoid membranes. So we know it's granum and it's thylakoid membranes, right? All right, most blank make food using photosynthesis. Autotrophs. The green pigment blank absorbs light to start photosynthesis. All right, bam, moving on. During the first stage of photosynthesis, 2 blank are passed from molecule to molecule down the electron transport chain. Huh? 2 electrons, right. Blank turns of the Calvin cycle produce 1 molecule of blank. 2 turns of the Calvin cycle make 1 molecule of glucose because 1 turn makes a 3-carbon sugar known as G3P. So you need 2 of those to make a 6-carbon sugar. 3 plus 3 is 6. Hey, during the light reactions, blank and blank are produced. ATP and NADPH, that's right. And yeah, that's it.
And then glucose.
No, the light reactions is just ATP. Oh, you're saying the next one. During the Calvin cycle, glucose. G3P is produced. If the only answer you got is glucose, then stick with glucose. All right. Glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. All right, so critical writing. Guys, on the PARCC exam, on the ACT you take on Monday and Tuesday, the practice ACT, you're going to be writing. It's on a computer. Your PARCC exam is going to be writing on a computer. Guys, you got to be ready for this. This is your future. I'm sorry, this is your future. You got to be able to take these things apart one bit at a time without panicking. I'll tell you a little bit about the exam you're taking on Monday because I sat down and watched it. I'm going to give you a little orientation on it before you walk in on Monday to try to do it, at least the science one, which is the one I watch. All right, critical writing. What are the two stages of photosynthesis? Discuss these two stages and how they're related. So you got the light reactions, you have the Calvin cycle, you have to talk about the light reactions capture the energy, the Calvin cycle, and sends that energy in chemical form. So light reactions is trying to take that energy in sunlight and change it from sunlight into something that's a chemical form of energy. The Calvin cycle takes that chemical form of energy and captures CO2 to make organic molecules that can be made to store energy long term or for structural purposes.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Let's talk about two stages as like
Right. That's a really good point. Look,
in the video.
all right, let me say this. Let's say we had a competition. Everybody see a triathlon? Okay. A triathlon is broken up into 3 stages, right? They have a running phase, they have a swimming phase, and they got a bike phase, right? Often the bike phase part of it can be uphill and part of it can be flat. So you can take any one of the stages and break it down into further stages, right? So you can keep breaking things up into stages. Photosynthesis is broken up into 2 main stages, the light reactions and the Calvin cycle. But the light reactions can then be broken down into 2 stages, photosystem 2, photosystem 1, and the 3 stages, and the third stage being ATP synthase, right? Right? So there's 3 stages there. All right. And now you should be able to do that. Okay, so I think we're done with this because the rest of this I'll send you in a second video for the rest of 4.3 and 4.4. Because 4.3 is talking about cellular respiration and fermentation. We haven't even given you lessons on it yet. I'm going to make some lessons on it. Guys, just listen for a minute, and then we're done with this so we can move on to science fair stuff. So, we're done with then, you have to remember that at this stage, with this, we're done with photosynthesis. If you learn photosynthesis really well, respiration is nothing. All right, it's just a little bit of a hiccup. So you're ready to go. Make sure you're reviewing the old stuff. The ACT on Monday, I'm going to warn you about this. Most of that stuff on that test you've never seen before. They're going to talk about mu energy and structures. They're going to tell you all kinds of stuff. But here's what I noticed when I read the test, when I looked at the test over the shoulders of some of the kids that are taking it. Listen to me, man. Shaquan, listen to me. When we're talking about the ACT on Monday and Tuesday, half of you take it on Monday, the other half on Tuesday. It's crazy reading. But if you read it carefully, it's actually all the answers you need are right in the reading. Like it's almost a reading test. All right? It's how do you read a graph? Can you read a graph? Can you read a chart? Complicated graphs, complicated charts, a complicated language. But really, if you sit down and take it easy and take it one step at a time, you can probably answer 90% of those questions. All right? So for sure, you're going to be able to do it. But a lot of you are going to give up because it's really complicated. Remember, Monday's a practice test for you to get this is your opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to look at what the ACT looks like, is going to look like, and the ACT is going to determine what college you get into and how much money you get going there. Some of you get full rides to whatever college you want to go to. But that's going to be depending on what? Your score on what exam? On the ACT. So please, take it easy, think about it. Try to look at it as a learning experience. Don't look at it as, I'm just going to blow this off and just make guesses because I don't know any of this. Yeah, I'm telling you, you're not going to know any of it. Or a lot of it. Because it's stuff you haven't covered yet. I get it. But it's an opportunity for you to look at it and say, wow, okay, this is stuff that I can work it out if I just look and just look at how to read a chart, look how to make a mental note about the things that you have to make sure you learn how to do before you take your real ACT. Does that make sense? And then next week you're going to also take, what is it? Not NWA next week. It's not NWA. NWA you're gonna take in January. Next week you're gonna take
The other thing.
no, not the Aspire. The Aspire is the ACT that I just talked about. Wait, you're gonna no, not Park. You're gonna take. Wait, let me speak. You're gonna take a SchoolNet exam in English, in math, and in physical science. It's gonna be a short test. I'm told it's a short test. And then next week also you have your Christmas thing, your Christmas play that's happening. Holiday play. I shouldn't call it Christmas. A holiday play that you're gonna have Thursday 9th block. It's a holiday play. I think my understanding is, what's the holiday play called?
I don't know.
Holiday on the East Side or something like that.
That's terrible.
East Side Holiday. It's a play. I don't know if it's terrible. That's what Miss what's her name said to me.
Holiday on the east side. There's gonna be people dressed with like rags. Something stupid.
That's what Miss what's her name said. I didn't say that.
No, I'm talking to him. They're probably gonna make it like that.
What, aren't you singing in it? Don't you know what's happening?
Singing and it's not.
I don't think that has anything to do with that. All right, so take it easy.